Out of 1,542 IDF sexual assault complaints, just 31 indictments found. But the thing is, this is not specific to Israel. I want to make this very clear. This is not specific to Israel. This is specific to our military apparatus as well, and our carceral system here in the United States as well. There is no military apparatus or carceral structure that does not have this kind of system in place. Does that make sense? Like, and also of course the mechanism of of going through these investigations, conducting them in a reasonable manner. And this is IDF on IDF, for the record. This is like Israeli on Israeli. As the Israeli military continues to grapple with cases of sexual assault, data from the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee revealed that despite thousands of complaints, only 31 indictments were filed. So that makes it a little bit harder as well. This is literally a constant. I want to mention it one more time. I want to make something very clear. Okay? Yeah, this is the one I was going to bring up as well. I want to make something very clear for everybody watching and everybody listening. It is not this is the norm. This is the norm in every country, not just Israel, not specific to Israel whatsoever. This is how the state works. Okay? This is how the carceral structure works, and this is how states work. So in this circumstance, the fault is always going to be on behalf of whichever side is the state and whichever side is being oppressed in an apartheid state. So that's not like unique to a conflict. It's not unique to Israel at all. This was the other case. Female Israeli soldiers are banned from serving as high security prison guards after allegations of sex with a Palestinian inmate. Israeli media say a soldier admitted to physical intimacy with a Palestinian man said to have carried out a deadly attack on Israeli civilians. The woman is taught to have been on military service, which is compulsory. And then there is also a meta study beyond male Israeli soldiers, Palestinian women, rape and war. Studies have been conducted on this. Studies have been conducted on this that go in either direction. Some studies show that there is actually less. There's actually less sexual violence than. There's actually less sexual violence than other conflicts, which is not exactly a barrier or a metric to hold up as like it's not happening. The birth of the Palestinian refugee problem, 1947, 1949. Okay, anyway. So the only thing I might add to your performance is why did you not push back more on the still unconfirmed 40 decapitated babies thing? Because the Israeli government released photos, and it doesn't matter. It's an unproductive conversation to have because babies still died. I don't care about the semantics of like the baby murder mechanism. Like it's a ridiculous and it's a ridiculous conversation to entertain over and over again because again, babies died. And what, like, is it a moral victory when you disprove that it was not when you disprove that it was decapitated, or is there more to a baby that loses their head not through direct decapitation by knife but instead by a bomb? Like, it's crazy. Anyway. We can look through all of this in a little bit, but I told Ethan that I would send him more information on it, and I will. But it is not specifically just the CARE study. I had a conversation with him afterwards where I talked about sexual coercion that occurs in many instances of gay Palestinians that are apprehended by the intelligence community and utilized against other Palestinians as a CI out of fear that they will be outed. And that is what I consider to be another act of sexual coercion. But yes, Ethan and I are good. Guys, the reason why I'm tired is because it was a highly charged and very emotional back and forth conversation. But also, what you have to remember is that study by OMCT on the violence against Palestinian women. So, what you have to remember is that there's always, these conversations are mentally draining, but there's always a secondary conversation that I have to be considering. Because when I'm talking to Ethan, it's not happening in a vacuum. When I'm talking to Ethan, there's a secondary, there is a secondary market of people that take that conversation into whatever direction they want to and try to weaponize it. Like the level of scrutiny that I withstand in a situation like this does not start and end with the words I used. It also is met with skepticism and what I actually mean and what I actually believe. And it's really silly because like it once again it takes away from the main point of contention. I want to always stay on message. I want to always stay on the topic. What matters is what is going on and getting the message out and showing a different perspective that is unfortunately not really well represented in mainstream media by design. And it's very it turns into like a shit slinging operation that places me in the crosshairs instead of anything else, and that's really fucked up. But that is something that I have to always consider, and that's something that's always in the back of my mind, and that's something that is happening anyway. It's always happened and it will continue to happen, and it's very frustrating. That is the case. But if you're asking me how I feel, this is not because of Ethan or anything like that. I think Ethan and I had a very as amicable a conversation as you can have on an issue like this. You know what I mean? But yeah. All right. So, genuinely here reasoning for this, why don't you consider the people from 48 and before to be settler colonists in Israel, but consider the French in Algeria or the Boers, both who had lived in occupied Algeria and South Africa for longer than the Israelis have lived in Israel? I don't understand the distinction. I don't know if you noticed this, but like, it already, like, especially in the case of South Africa, the fuck do you mean? Like, they're still there. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about like those people were removed from said land. They're still there, and they should be. And I do mean it. I mean that like not. There's a real reason why many people that have thought long and hard on this have come to a similar conclusion that it is entirely unproductive and almost silly to advocate for the mass displacement of Israeli Jews that live in Israel proper, and the goal is to set up a singular solitary state where everyone has equal rights. Now you might say that that's not realistic, but it would be a disservice to people that live there and have lived there now for at least 75 plus years. It means multiple generations have lived there at this point. That in and of itself is another act of cruelty. Historic Palestine was a place under Ottoman mandate that was safe for Jews in general. The Ottoman Empire had historically been a safe place, a safe haven for Jewish people all around the world, escaping the Inquisition, escaping pogroms. That is a constant. and that should remain. I'm Palestinian. My family has lost our land. I would never advocate to do to us what they did to do to them what they did to us. People just want to go to work and be a part of the economy and not be a second class citizen. Yeah. Why don't you push back on them, saying only civilians were killed when most of the deaths were IDF soldiers? The attacks were against mostly military targets. I think you're like hyper focusing on the semantics of a conversation. Civilians did die. There's you know there's no reason to act like to act like that is not the case. I don't know how to describe it. So yeah. What? Don't send me fucking Jackson Hinkle links, dude. What people fail to understand is what would advocate the same way for Israeli rights if it were Palestinians doing what Israelis today. What? I forgot to get my glasses from upstairs. Oh, okay. But yeah, we'll dive deeper into the issue of including the meta study from Beyond Male Soldiers, Palestinian Women, Rape, and War. Israeli denials and classification of documents alongside scholarly work have all contributed to the perception that aside from the 1948 war and its aftermath, rape and other forms of sexual violence are missing from Israel's military toolbox. A spatial intersectional analysis of Israeli state sexual violence against Palestinians finds that in the context of occupied Palestinian territories, the wartime rape paradigm is doing a disservice. It further silences Israel's state sexual violence against Palestinians and diverts our attention from colonial nature of the Israeli control regime. These findings unearth the risks of stripping rape of the specific context in which it materializes, the importance of incorporating power structures that transgress the framework of conflict and war-related sexual violence, and necessity of deciphering and attending colonial and settler colonial-related sexual violence. So, by the metrics of wartime rape, the Israeli state rape numbers are better, but that is not a metric that you can judge a settler colonial state on. This in and of itself is I mean, there's a lot of studies in it. Basically, there's a lot of studies in this one. I would say that this is like relatively comprehensive, but I don't think it like. Any strip search under apartheid is sexual assault. I mean, there's that. But like I said, this is unfortunately one of these circumstances where it is incredibly difficult to make to see the full scope of the situation. But it's not necessarily just shame. Some people have brought that up, but it's also, like I said, the same considerations that exist in looking at carceral rape, sexual violence that occurs among the incarcerated, and sexual violence that occurs by members of the state. This is a constant in America. It's a constant in Israel. It's a constant everywhere. It's just a constant. And it is especially worse when considering that, one, just like every other military structure, the military historically and notoriously is very bad at dealing with their own sexual assault complaints internally, whether it be people that they're dealing with or whether it be intra-military affairs, like soldiers sexually assaulting others. One of the more famous examples of this happens in the United States of America. The military has a huge rape problem, and yet no such amends have been made on this issue. So it is additionally complicated as far as like getting official numbers, considering that Palestinians have no legal recourse in many circumstances in the occupied West Bank. As I've talked about, the IDF is not there to protect them, is not there to actually instill a presence of law and order. The the IDF is there to protect the settlers. So it's a complicated story to tell. But we will get into it more. But remember, one of these studies comes from B'Tselem, which I respect and appreciate, and that is more so abuse and torture and interrogations of dozen Palestinian minors in the Israel police Etzion facility. Here, I will give you an example of why it's additionally difficult to get numbers, even though it is documented. What is this? Worth recalling that Omar Shakir was expelled from Israel as an enemy of the state for telling truths like these. Yeah. So the thing I was going to mention, with B'Tselem, is that in October 2014, only one case is still underway. And, this is the update. It included the investigation of complaints by 2 minors and 1 adult who were interrogated at the Etzion police in May 2013. The other case is opened by the DIP since 2009 in response to complaints B'Tselem filed on behalf of interrogatees at Etzion who complained of violence and threats in the course of questioning were all closed. To date, no official has conceded the existence of this phenomenon, yet after B'Tselem met with senior police figures, it increasingly diminished and ultimately ceased. Since July 2013, B'Tselem has received no reports of violence or threats on part of the Etzion police investigators in the course of the questioning. This situation starkly contrasts with dozens of such reports made by interrogatees to B'Tselem previously. They've received testimonies from dozens of Palestinian residents of the Bethlehem and Hebron districts, most of them minors, alleging that they were subjected to threats and violence, sometimes amounting to torture, during the interrogation of the police station at Gush Etzion. So, like the treatment of prisoners, whether it is strip searching them or other forms of torture, especially to minors, is something that once again is complicated, not due to the fact that it doesn't happen, but due to the fact that the reporting mechanisms that you would normally have, at least like a rape kit backlog, right? For example, shows the existence that like this is most likely happening, but the media or the institutions are not doing a good enough job with it. But if there is none of that and there's no recourse and even a knowledge that you can go somewhere to demand recourse, then it becomes even more complicated, and all you have to rely on in that circumstance is simply testimony. Just want to clarify that. Anyway, that's a brief aside that I think I should do a better job of. What? Cops investigate the anti-Semitic chant at the pro-Palestine rally at the Sydney Opera House. Incident in Sydney was just one of the numerous flashpoints of pro-Palestinian rallies around the world. The ugly scene and witnessed in Sydney is one of the numerous flashpoints. They did the deeply anti-Semitic shit at that. It was so fucking unacceptable. There was footage of people saying "fuck the Jews." Fahad Ali, a co-organizer of the rally, acknowledged that the anti-Semitic chants had occurred and said he had tried to shut them down. I intervened to shut down anti-Semitic chants from a group of idiots who were in the minority. Police told to my face that they would not assist. He denounced the chants as not only vulgar but completely selfish. It served as a distraction of the immense human suffering in Gaza. The scenes drew widespread condemnation from the Australian political leaders, including Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, questioning why the march had been permitted to take place. Yeah. Yeah, protests are unfortunately incredibly easy to co-opt and move in whichever direction that you want to move it towards. And very difficult to do so, especially if it's like organized on the spot very quickly with like a couple people that are not as experienced in organizing on the ground as others. If it's not an organization doing it, and in many cases, with Palestinian causes. It's usually just grassroots. It is deeply and it is just awfully difficult to maintain some level of social cohesion. All right. Gaza is under siege as Israel forces mass on the border.
Its mass mobilization of troops, hundreds of thousands, on the southern border with Gaza. The widespread expectation that a ground offensive across the frontier may be coming. But the UN is calling for essential supplies to be allowed into the territory where the humanitarian situation is deteriorating rapidly as Israel enforces a complete siege. The very latest from right across the region with our international editor Jeremy Bowen in the southern town of Beirut.
The Israelis have made a lot of progress in getting their troops prepared for that moment if and when, and probably when, the order comes to invade Gaza. In the fields and farms on the border wire, Israel's combat soldiers are creating jumping-off points to invade Gaza. Late this afternoon, at Kibbutz Be'eri, regular units and some of more than 300,000 mobilized reservists were preparing for the order to move in that most Israelis believe will come.
The build-up that we're seeing here is certainly the clearest evidence that I've witnessed that Israel is preparing for a ground operation in Gaza. And if you add this to the formation of a war cabinet, you can see the direction they must be going in.
Israel's allies are gathering. Antony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, is flying in overnight from Washington. American support includes weapons and moving an aircraft carrier battle group closer to deter Iran's allies in Lebanon from joining the war.
The United States.
The thing that is stopping Lebanon or Hezbollah from joining the Northern Front and opening up a two-front battle for Israel is the same reason why Israel does not feel comfortable. Well, one of the reasons why Israel does not feel comfortable doing a land invasion of Gaza. Obviously, the first and foremost primary reason as to why Israel does not want to invade Gaza by land is because it is incredibly costly from a human point of view. It's much easier to just bomb from afar. What I mean by that is you can bomb from afar, and none of the people that are lobbing missiles or dropping bombs from airplanes get a scratch on them. But if you actually go in to the Gaza Strip, all of a sudden you have a complicated network of tunnels and people that understand the terrain much better than you that are going to literally kill a bunch of Israeli soldiers. So that's why they want to avoid casualties on the IDF side. And part of that is, of course, causing the many casualties on the Palestinian side. So that's number one. Number two, and perhaps more importantly, Israel, despite having a massive military, does not have enough money to keep up 300,000 reservists and keep them paid, keep them fed, keep them ready to fight in fighting position. It's simply not something that Israel is capable of doing, no matter how much money they get from their allies. Yes, I am sure of it. Yes, 100%. It's not just my assessment. It is the assessment of Moody's, as far as I understand it. I saw the fucking article where it was like Moody's warned Israel that their credit score might be Moody's sends Israel rating warning that insurance costs spike. Moody's sent a warning to Israel on Wednesday, days before a scheduled rating review, that a prolonged war with Hamas could drag down the country's credit score. Surprise attacks by Hamas at the end of the weekend have sparked worse escalation of violence in 50 years and raised questions about not just the humanitarian cost, but the economic toll as well. Moody's, which is scheduled to review Israel's A1 stable rating on Friday, said the chance of a downgrade would depend on how the war develops. In the past, Israel's sovereign credit profile has shown resilience to terrorist attacks and military action, a group of the firm's top analysts said in a note. However, a prolonged conflict that durably and significantly impairs economic activity and policy making would test that resilience. Comments came as traders pushed the cost of insuring Israel's debt against a default to the highest level in nearly a decade. Credit default swaps, as the insurance policies are known, broke through 100 basis point level, meaning they've surged more than 65% since the weekend's attacks. Israel has never been downgraded by any of the three main agencies, S&P Global, Moody's, and Fitch, but analysts highlight that this week's surge in CDS shows traders have concerns that it could now be downgraded. So that's another aspect of the problem. And last but not least, I guess that those are the two main points to consider, but there's also the reality that there could be a multiple front war, which, again, would be devastating. Be devastating for Israel and its military. So those are factors that are always important to consider. But the very same factors for Lebanon or Hezbollah in general also exist. The economic circumstances of Lebanon is significantly worse than Israel. Okay, it is in a state of dire disrepair, and therefore Hezbollah forces opening up a second front against Israel in northern Israel would be completely and unimaginably awful for the Lebanese economy. All right. And last but not least, it seems like nobody wants to bring Iran into the fold. You have the aircraft carriers that are trucking in the direction of Israel. And part of that is to ensure that there are necessary resources and military support for Israel if Iran, Syria, and Hezbollah join in a war against Israel. Now, while tensions are this high, conflict must be avoided at all costs. The goal should be to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. That is my goal always. I know I said avoid at the top of the hour. That wasn't by design, but yes, I will be serving you a 3-minute ad break now, regardless. So, calmer heads must prevail. Anyway, here's the 3-minute ad break now. It looked like Lebanon, Syria, and Iran were going to get involved. The U.S. wouldn't do a direct intervention. If it looked like Lebanon, Syria, and Iran were going to get involved, the U.S. wouldn't do a direct intervention. Really? Yes. We'll be talking about the white phosphorus in a second. Jasmina666 and Opris and Froxt, thank you for the 5 youth subs. I really, really, really hope that Anthony Blinken, and I don't know if this is even possible, but I really hope that they can get the Israeli ground operations to not do what they're trying to do. We'll see. Anthony Blinken wrote and deleted twice tweets that urged Israel to de-escalate, which is so odd. So I don't know. BBC team reporting from Gaza finds dozens of neighbors and friends among the injured.
And El-Burj, a reporter for BBC Arabic and a resident of Gaza. Here in Al-Shifa Hospital, bodies lay everywhere. The injured scream for help. You can never forget these sounds. Among the dead and wounded, my cameraman Mahmoud has seen his friend Malik. Malik has managed to survive. but his family have not.
I don't know. The BBC cameraman found his friends. I don't know if there's TOS in this.
This is my local hospital. Inside are my friends, my neighbors. This is my community. Today has been one of the most difficult days in my career. I have seen things I can't never unsee. This young girl's home was destroyed. Her relatives have been killed and she needs help.
Oh,
My
they
daughter
censor
is the
it.
same age. I want to give her a hug.
They censor it.
In the chaos, we try to understand what is going on. A mother called Muhammad sits next the bodies of her family.
We were sleeping and they bombarded our house like everyone else. We don't have any resistance fighters in our building. All the building is full of residents. 120 people live there.
The corridors of Shifa Hospital are filled with bodies. The morgue can no longer cope. The bodies of the dead have to be laid on the floor outside the hospital entrance. You never want to become the story, yet in my city, I feel helpless as the dead were given no dignity and the injured are left in pain. Adnan El-Bursh, BBC News, Gaza.
Dude. I think I've never seen this reporter before, and I think it's partially because like they're just cycling through so many of them because a bunch of them are dying and a bunch of them can't get into Gaza. Like, what the fuck? But here's Anthony Blinken.
Has Israel's back. We have the back of the Israeli people. We have their back today. We'll have it tomorrow. We will have it every day.
James Cleverly, Britain's Foreign Secretary, was already here in Israel at a frontline town near Gaza.
I'm not going to speculate on what support we might want to give. I'm here to find out. I'm here to find out what practical support we can give to Israel.
The Foreign Secretary was hustled into a shelter when the sirens went. Israel has the four-square support of its allies after the massacres perpetrated by Hamas. In their safe rooms, millions of Israelis are praying, waiting, often frightened now that assumptions they had about their safety have crumbled. Their government says what it's doing in Gaza is defending them. But only a few miles from this family in Ashkelon, Israel's onslaught raises questions about whether it's breaking the laws of war. In Gaza, Israel has caused immense damage in only 5 days. International humanitarian law obliges belligerents to protect civilian lives. Israel says all this is legitimate self-defense against Hamas. But it's also cut off supplies of water, food, fuel and power to more than 2 million people and killed hundreds of civilians. Outside the main hospital in Gaza City, Ala Al-Kafane sits with the bodies of his entire close family. They'd moved twice to escape the airstrikes until one hit their borrowed apartment at 4 this morning.
I've lost my father, my brother, my uncle, 2 cousins, 2 other family members, and my pregnant wife. I'm the only survivor.
He said, "We've done nothing." Israel insists Hamas is to blame for the suffering of Palestinians. But accusations that Israel is answering the war crimes of Hamas with ones of its own have started.
Yeah, just simply accusations. Bro, how are you going to say it's accusations when you're showing it? Like, what do you mean? Dude, this kind of coverage is so crazy. I don't know what to say.
Back in Israel, videos are still emerging from the Hamas attack last Saturday. Security cameras showed two women trying to escape a Hamas gunman. Somehow he misses them. Armed Israelis arrive, and the man who wanted to murder them either retreats or is killed.
Wait, what?
And at a hospital near Tel Aviv, signs of the tension in Israel. A visiting government minister gets a furious reception. A nurse yells they've been helped by every kind of civilian, but the government has given them nothing. The military buildup might steady Israeli nerves, and the defense minister said tonight, "We will wipe Hamas off the face of the earth." Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, in southern Israel.
Fuck, man. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's not what happened. They let the woman run back to her car after IDF forces started firing on the border. I don't know why they're lying. What? I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Well, Palestinian media say the only power plant still operating in the Gaza Strip has now stopped working after running out of fuel. And as we've been hearing, there are more than 200 targets that have been hit by the Israelis in airstrikes overnight. And these images show the level of destruction. This is the Rimal area before the strikes. And this, a satellite image of the same neighborhood, which came through yesterday and has been located.
Fucking Christ. Yo, for those of you who are asking, like, how's there only a couple thousand, or how's there only 1,000 dead? The reason why there's only 1,000 dead, which is ridiculous to say, I can't believe it, but it's 1,000 now, and it's probably going to be higher. And also, there are hundreds of thousands that are displaced. Hundreds of thousands that are displaced right now because they ran away from their homes, knowing full well that it was going to be bombed into oblivion. So they are at different shelters, not bomb shelters specifically, but incorrect. Oh, the latest numbers are 1,537 Palestinians killed and more than 6,000 wounded. Yeah. What's going on with the hostages? They're literally going to kill the hostages too with the bombing? Yes. The displaced right now that are sitting in like UN facilities all around Gaza, the numbers are at like, it was at 200,000 yesterday, so I don't know where it's at now, but no reason to believe that number has diminished, obviously. It's probably increased dramatically, as a matter of fact. Oh, there it is. 270,000 Palestinians are being sheltered in UN-run shelters right now. That means at least 270,000 that have been displaced. UN workers have died. UN facilities also receive shelling as well. And now the Human Rights Watch has officially confirmed white phosphorus being used in Gaza and in Lebanon. I did not want to go along with this narrative until there was at least some level of confirmation, and that confirmation has come. Israel's use of white phosphorus in military operations in Gaza and Lebanon puts civilians at risk of serious and long-term injuries. Human Rights Watch said today in releasing a question and answer document on white phosphorus that they verified videos taken in Lebanon and Gaza October 10th, 11th, 2023, respectively, showing multiple airbursts of artillery-fired white phosphorus over the Gaza City port and two rural locations along the Israel-Lebanon border, and interviewed two people who described an attack in Gaza. White phosphorus, which can be used either for marking, signaling, and obscuring, or as a weapon to set fires that burn people and objects, has a significant incendiary effect that can severely burn people and set structures, fields, and other civilian objects in the vicinity on fire. The use of white phosphorus in Gaza, one of the most densely populated areas in the world, magnifies the risk to civilians and violates the international humanitarian law prohibition on putting civilians at unnecessary risk. There's no reason to use white phosphorus considering the heavy bombing campaign. Because they don't need to use white phosphorus. Anytime the white phosphorus is used in a crowded civilian areas, it poses a high risk of excruciating burns and lifelong suffering. Like, they can blow up buildings without it. They've killed so many without it. Just cruel and unusual. Like, the difference between maiming someone and, like, killing them. Yes. So they reviewed 2 videos from October 10th and 2 locations near the Israel-Lebanon border. Each shows 155 millimeter white phosphorus artillery projectiles being used. White phosphorus ignites when exposed to atmospheric oxygen and continues to burn. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they found a different footage that we hadn't seen, because the footage that you guys kept sending me, some of it was from, I think, Syria. And I believe that they had used white phosphorus in the past. In 2013, in response to a petition to Israel's High Court of Justice regarding the use of white phosphorus in Gaza, the Israeli military stated that it would no longer use white phosphorus in populated areas, except in 2 narrow situations that it revealed only to the justices. In the court's ruling, Justice Edna Arbel said that the conditions would render use of white phosphorus an extreme exception in highly particular circumstances. That's crazy. I wonder what those circumstances were. Although this ruling did not represent an official change in policy, Justice Arbel called on the Israeli military to conduct a thorough and comprehensive examination and adopt a permanent military directive. Attacks using air-delivered incendiary weapons in civilian areas are prohibited under Protocol 3. Protocol 3 applies only to weapons that are primarily designed to set fires or cause burns, and thus some countries believe it excludes certain multi-purpose munitions with incendiary effects, notably those containing white phosphorus. White phosphorus is like, using a flamethrower from a plane. It's cruel and unusual and unnecessary punishment. Türkler her yerde, haberin olsun. Gelip biriniz öldürün beni de bitsin artık bu yani mücadele o zaman, ne diyeyim yani. Ne demeye çalışıyorsun? Ne istiyorsun abi benden ya? Anyway. It's like a flamethrower and a weak mustard gas together. UN number of displacements in Gaza is up to 340,000. 220,000 of them are sheltering in 92 UN RWA schools with no access to provide essential supplies. UN humanitarians warn that Gaza is on the brink of running out of food, water, electricity, and critical supplies. Does anyone have that doctor who's in Gaza who was talking to Wolf Blitzer? I think it shows like someone just threatened to kill him. Yeah. Turks are wilding out in the chat still. Talking about how they're everywhere and they will, possibly come for me. The one? No, this is not what I'm looking at. I'm talking about the lady Talk to Wolf Blitzer about bomb shelters.
Oh,
this is the
breaking
one.
News right now. New strikes in Gaza happening at this moment, which raises the question: is an Israeli?
This was, of course, 2 days ago. Now remember, there's a reason why I'm showing this to you.
Imminent. Prime Minister Netanyahu promising to hit Hamas, and I'm quoting him right now, like never before. Israel's defense minister is calling for a complete siege of Gaza, with another top Israeli official saying a ground war there is not off the table. But with some 2 million people crowded together on a 140 square mile piece of land in Gaza, what kind of fighting would unfold in one of the most densely packed areas on earth? Ben Wiedemann is out front in Jerusalem for us. Ben, I know you spent a lot of time reporting from Gaza. You know how difficult that terrain is.
Here.
Saying Ben Wiedemann, thank you very much. And out front now, Dr. Barbara Zinn. She's an American pediatrician who is stuck in Gaza right now. She was there on a medical mission to treat children when Hamas launched its terror attack on Israel. Dr. Zinn, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're hearing these airstrikes that are going on in Gaza right now. It must be very, very scary. What have you been experiencing?
Well, I happened to be walking on the beach I volunteer with the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund and was walking with one of their employees and his daughter on the beach when things started. We went for a walk at about 6, then about 6:30 could see some missiles and the Iron Dome missiles, encountering them. And yeah, since then we were told to stay in the hotel. There's 2 of us here and we were just waiting to leave, really.
As you know, Israel has been striking various targets in Gaza throughout the day in response to the Hamas terror attacks that have been going on against Israel. You were there on a routine mission, a very important mission to take care of children. Were you prepared at all for this?
Well, whenever you go to Gaza, you always know that there's danger of some violence while you're there. But no, I wasn't prepared for this.
Let us know if you need to go into some sort of a bomb shelter or whatever, because I can hear those explosions going off right near you.
Notice what he said? He said, let us know if you need to go to a bomb shelter. I think that should show you how this works. In his mind, he thinks that Gaza has bomb shelters. She's laughing because you'll see why she's laughing. I mean, she's laughing because she thinks it's fucking hilarious that Wolf Blitzer said, hey, do you need to go to a bomb shelter?
There are no bomb shelters here.
Is there any safe area that you can go to?
Actually, I have a sister-in-law who's Palestinian. She tells me to stay away from the windows, so I'm away from the window, stay by corners of walls that are more fortified, and open your mouth so your eardrums don't break if there's a lot of pressure. So I'm following her advice, and I'm in a safe part of the room.
I don't know if you heard, but the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, doctor, is warning that Israel will go after.
So that's the funniest part. He just doesn't skip a beat. Typical Wolf. Classic. Doesn't skip a beat. And it's like, hey, did you hear? They're doing fucking ethnic cleansing over there. How crazy.
Hamas, and I'm quoting him now, like never before. There's been calls for a complete siege of Gaza. A ground invasion is not off the table either. How worried are you right now for your own safety?
Well, we're doing what we can to try to get evacuated. The organization I volunteer with, Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, is working hard, and we're developing plans to go down to the Rafah border. And so those plans, we're going as fast as we can to enact that.
You're trying to leave that southern border of Gaza into Egypt, is that right?
Right. So we have to get a visa into Egypt, so we're waiting for the permission.
Which Israel bombed in like the first day. Yes, that's the one that got bombed. Yes, you are correct.
From the Egyptian government, our State
It's just interesting. I wonder why he's not asking her why she's in support of Hamas. You know, working for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund and all. I wonder. Think about that. Something to consider. Every other person that they've interviewed from Gaza, they hit him with that same line, you know, what's up? Do you support Hamas? Why are you there? Did you condemn Hamas? Yeah.
Department is helping a little with that. And then the biggest concern is that it's about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to drive from Gaza City down to Rafah. And so the worry is that the Israelis will, you know, bomb the vehicle that we're in. And so we're working on trying to get some cooperation for that.
As far as your discussions with the State Department about evacuating, what are they telling you tonight? What are they saying? Stay put, shelter in place, or try to get into a car and drive to the Rafah border?
That scared the shit out of me.
They're not really giving us advice. They're telling us what's open, and then and then they're going to help us get the visa. But they're not giving us advice on how to get to the border or anything at this point. I don't know that they could. I don't know.
And just before I let you go, Dr. Zind, I know that you've got a lot going on. Just a few moments ago, we heard that huge explosion over your head. What was it like hearing that?
Well, I get startled by them. They're not direct hits to my hotel, and I feel like our hotel is safe. But they're startling, and I'm wary of them, and I just take the precautions that I described before.
Well, Dr. Zind, good luck to you. Thank you so much for joining.
The bravery of her, my Lord. What an incredible person. I mean, seriously, what an incredible human being. Some people, man. Some fucking people. Yeah.
By our colleagues at BBC Verify. More than 1,000 people are now known to have died, and 250,000 have been forced from their homes. Well, Gaza is, of course, under siege, and communications are extremely difficult. But we can talk now to our correspondent, Rushdie Abu Alouf, who's live in Gaza City for us tonight. Rushdie, just tell us what the last few days have been like, living in an area under siege and under constant bombardment from the air.
Yeah, I can see I have been witnessing the heaviest airstrike in my 20 years covering of this story. It was by far the heaviest. I've been witnessing what the destruction in this Rimal neighborhood. For a very long time, this neighborhood has been the safe haven for most of the Gaza, and most of the streets in this neighborhood was destroyed. I was among the families who were suffering during the days. But the humanitarian side of the story is moving in a very significant way. When like 2 million people lost the electricity today, we are talking about the essential services such as medical services, water supplies, food supplies are being suspended because of that. The humanitarian corridor for letting food and medicine and fuel into Gaza is a must, is a call from every Palestinian. That's why we understand tonight from a senior Egyptian official that Egypt is working closely with other countries and contacting Hamas and Israel to try to find a draft of 6 hours to allow goods and fuel to come from Egypt into Gaza.
And Rushdie, what about the suggestion, the possibility of a ground invasion? We heard from Jeremy Bowen that the more troops are massing on the border with Gaza across in Israel. How are people feeling about the possibility that there could be a ground invasion?
This is the most worry for the people. People in Gaza fear this because they have lived through a ground invasion before. Back in 2014, we have seen Israeli tanks in refugee camp. We are talking about a camp in the north, like when 100,000 people live in a very small, tiny piece of land. If people are already exhausted by 3,000 airstrikes and 1,100 people died only from what soldiers and tanks are engaging in street to street and house to house fighting with Hamas in Gaza, with 2 million people living in this tiny piece of land.
Okay, we'll end it there. Rushdie Abdulalouf, thank you very much indeed for joining us live from Gaza, where communications are obviously incredibly difficult to establish and to maintain.
Israel's military launched a new wave of airstrikes on the region Thursday morning.
The Palestinian Health Ministry says more than 1,200 people have been killed and nearly 6,000 wounded by Israeli bombardment. The Health Ministry says it expects hospitals to run out of fuel for generators today, leading to what it calls catastrophic conditions.
Joining us now is Naila Shrawa, Oxfam Regional Country Relations Manager in Gaza City. Naila, thank you so much for sparing this time to speak to us. I know that yesterday, or certainly earlier this week, Oxfam was warning that what's happening in Gaza would lead to a humanitarian catastrophe. Would you say that's already begun?
Yes, hi. Thanks for having me. First of all, yeah, I mean, it's very obvious that the crisis is increasing rapidly, and there is a severe impact on the population of Gaza, the entire population of Gaza. The numbers of displaced people has been increasing, reaching to around 200 plus thousand people within the Gaza Strip. I know most of them are in UNRWA, in UN administered schools, trying to take shelters there. We are extremely worried because of the tightening of the Israeli siege. We have to be aware that the Israeli siege has been there for more than 15 years. And so when you ask me about electricity, we never had a full day of electricity since more than 15, 16 years. Now we have zero electricity. Before, at the best times, we had 8, and that's just an example, 8 hours, I mean. Currently, we are extremely worried about the infrastructure that is responsible for delivering basic services such as water.
This is why it's important to come to terms with just not only say electricity was shut off, but to also fully realize what that means. You know what I mean?
So electricity affects water directly in the Gaza Strip. There is no ability to pump water to the networks. That's also in addition to the severe damages that is not yet clear the extent of it, but apparently it's going to be very very grave. I think what is also mostly important to know that Gaza is already suffering before October 7th. Before October 7th, you had half of the population under poverty. You are living in a situation where there is no economic viability of any activity. Israel has full control on export and import. Israel conducts regular attacks, and that affects different livelihood groups within the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, so just in terms of your immediate concerns, obviously Secretary Blinken is trying to organise a humanitarian corridor. That's going to be very difficult to negotiate right now, isn't it, with the Israelis, because they're talking about a complete siege. But what is the most important thing that you need right now just to get through the next few days?
What is really needed immediately is to have a ceasefire to allow people of Gaza to receive support and basic services, to at least for paramedics to be able to have some work around their hospitals. Hospitals are packed with injuries. There are still injuries that are everywhere. There is no accessibility to organizations on the ground to deliver support. There's no ability for us population to move and get what we need, or get the water that we need or the food that we need. We need immediate ceasefire so that we are able also to support those who are under these very, very harsh circumstances, especially who are taking shelters at the schools and who are being hosted in just very random places and public places around the Gaza Strip. Everyone I know personally is not living in their home. Everyone I know is moving from one place to another, from a public place to another home to a relative, etc. This must be stopped, and I think it's going to be very worrying in terms of supplies, food supplies, entry of medical supplies, all these essential items. I mean, by the hour there is severe suffering, in addition to the actual death in the hospitals themselves that are overloaded with injuries and casualties from the bombings.
Oh shit. Fuck, I literally clicked on it right as it happened. Jesus Christ.
Please don't continue this interview if you feel like you need to go somewhere else for your safety, Najla. Do you need to leave?
I think it's fine. No, I'm good.
Is that what it's like all the time?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Just this morning, there was a massive airstrike at Al-Shati camp, and it's extremely shocking, the images. And I hope these images will make news at your.
Bro, she's like, one, where's she gonna go? Two, she's like, no, I have a good opportunity as the Oxfam Regional Country Relations Manager to be able to deliver some truth about what the fuck's going on. On the ground.
Your channel, for example, where it seems there's a huge massacre. It's a densely populated area where just bodies are under rubble. I mean, I think the situation is extremely critical, and negotiating safe passage, I'm not sure if this is going to be just to evacuate foreigners or who. I mean, this does not really respond to what people would need. Of course, it's an interest of
I just wanted to ask you about, you've just had that, it was obviously a very close explosion, and you just sat there and carried on with the interview. Whereas, a lot of people watching would assume you would run off and go to some safe space. But is it because you just haven't got anywhere to go and you're just so used to it? Just explain
we don't have
what went through your mind.
shelters, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for raising this. I mean, in the entire Gaza Strip, I mean, we don't have shelters. I mean, the best circumstances is that you go to a lower level. I'm very lucky. I have a basement where that's why I'm receiving more than 12 people in addition to my family, who are all now I'm hosting at my place, and so they are unable to go back to their homes because they are severely damaged in Rimal area that was wiped, and we're managing to live together. So whenever there is something, kind of close or big like this, we just, walk around in the corridors and then slowly go to the lower level, etc. And we stick around each other. And that's what happened at 5 a.m. this morning, for example, when massive airstrikes were happening near the Gaza port and at the western side of the city. Just across the street from me, there was the building that was totally destroyed. We had to evacuate. We left running basically with in the middle of the night after 1 a.m. 2 nights ago, and all of us, we were 20 at my house, 22 people who fled their region, came to us. Then we moved all of us to different. We split into two different places. I mean, we're talking about mad situation here, a totally mad situation.
Nigel, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Obviously, your priority is to help these people and these civilians, but this is your life as well, and we've seen that expressed so obviously today. Best of luck with what you're doing, and thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
Best of luck with what you're doing. Good luck.
That'll be it.
All right. So the UN says it's been forced to shut down 14 food distribution centers in Gaza. Yes. I think Israel also bombed the airport in Damascus as well. Here are the numbers the Israeli Air Force is saying they bombed. Dozens of fighter jets and helicopters attacked a series of terrorist targets of the Hamas terrorist organization throughout the Gaza Strip so far. The Israeli Air Force has dropped about 6,000 bombs against Hamas target. I mean, so glad that they're targeting Hamas targets.
And what about those Palestinians in hospital who are on life support, and babies and incubators whose life support and incubator will have to...
By the way, this is legitimately the same line of questioning that should be asked all the time. Okay? This is a good line of questioning to follow anytime an Israeli official that is directly related to the atrocities, they should be called in the question, especially because the people that you bring up from the Palestinian side do not have any fucking power. Okay? They don't. The people in Gaza, you're not talking to Hamas. You're not talking to Hamas officials. You're talking to fucking random people living in Gaza, or random Americans living in Gaza. You know what I mean? Whereas when you have this conversation with someone like fucking Naftali Bennett, like, you're talking to a dude who got the hands on the trigger pretty much, or at least like is more complicit than the average person. You know what I mean? Certainly, if you ask a random Israeli that comes on, you know what I mean, like an Israeli citizen that is powerless, if they came on and you were like, what do you think about the violence in Gaza? Like, do you condemn the violence of your government? Like, that would be ridiculous. Obviously, no such consideration exists for every single fucking Palestinian that has ever been on any of these broadcasts. But yes, you absolutely should do this when you have officials in positions of power. You absolutely should fucking ask that question. So I'm glad that that question is being asked, especially because when that question is asked, here's the answer.
And what about those Palestinians in hospital who are on life support, and babies and incubators whose life support and incubator will have to be turned off because the Israelis have cut the power to Gaza?
Are you seriously keep on asking me about Palestinian civilians? What's wrong with you? Have you not seen what happened? We're fighting Nazis. We don't target them. Now, the world can come and bring them anything they want.
Wait, I don't get it. If you're fighting Nazis, why do you not kill them indiscriminately then if they're Nazis? Right? I mean, there's no consideration at that point. No civilian casualties, right? I don't get it.
If you want to bring them electricity, I'm not going to feed electricity or water to my enemies. If anyone else wants, that's fine. We're not responsible for them.
This is the point.
But you
this
keep
is the
on.
point.
I want to tell you. No, listen. You listen to me right now. I've heard you enough.
No, I understand. We're trying to have a conversation here. Listen, this is my program. This is my show, and I am asking the questions. You're raising your voice, and I've asked you, and we've all...
The reason why he's reacting this way is because it is so completely outside of the bounds of expectation. He's like, what? How dare you? Like, what are you, fucking crazy? You fucking asking me that shit? Fuck you.
No, I understand. We're trying to have a conversation here. Listen, this is my program. This is my show, and I am asking the questions. You're raising your voice, and I've asked you, and we've already stopped, please, and let me finish. We've already distinguished between Hamas.
I want to tell you, shame on you.
You're trying to speak over me.
We are not. Shame on you.
It's nothing about shame. We're trying to have a conversation about a very serious situation here, and you are refusing to address it.
Jump over immediately and again, you
Absolutely
use the
not.
Palestinian narrative.
You are
They are
incorrect.
responsible, because I can tell you that when the UK,
Absolutely
when Great
not.
Britain was fighting the Nazis during World War II, no one asked what's going on in Dresden. It was the
Bro, I'm going to run that back. While also simultaneously, yes, he is the moderate one. He's the moderate guy. That's Naftali Bennett. I want you to understand something. Just when he is talking about Dresden, okay, bombing of Dresden, we are currently talking about a population. He's supposed to be the moderate guy. We are talking about a population that is 47% 14 and under.
responsible, because I can tell you that when the UK,
Absolutely
when Great
not.
Britain was fighting the Nazis during World War II, no one asked what's going on in Dresden. It was the Nazis targeting London, and you targeted Dresden. So
Listen.
shame on you if you go on with that false narrative.
We're not talking about that. And in hindsight, many people have... Listen.
Oh, no. He's about to be like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best example to bring up. Because, like, you know. Like, was that a good move? Like, because World War II is fucking great, okay? It was horrific. It was awful. But as far as, like, moral superiority and moral clarity goes, there is, like, a ton of examples that you can use that is objectively correct, right? Like, there's a ton of examples that you can point to be like, here's where the criminal punishments or the deaths that the Nazis were dealt were so valid. Dresden quite literally is the one of the very few. It's where it gets tricky, okay, from a historical perspective. Same with like the firebombing in Japan. Many such examples of good. Many such examples of good conquest that you could point to, and he went to choose the fucking one that is like contested. Be careful, you're playing with fire. Am I playing with fire? I don't think I'm saying anything wrong. I mean, Howard Zinn has openly talked about how radicalizing it was for him, specifically as an Air Force bomber pilot during World War II, where they engaged in bombing campaigns over Germany that literally, that he felt Shatter said at least he didn't say Nagasaki. Yeah, literally. On like controversies, I would say, yeah, Dresden over here in the UK is even seen as a mistake by a lot of British people. We don't have to defend all of America's actions in World War II in order to accuse you of war crimes. Yeah, Kurt Vonnegut as well. Like, a lot of people were very legitimately conflicted on the actions that the military took. And you know what wasn't conflicting though? Like pretty much every fucking ground battle. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference. Now, that was Nazi Germany. Okay? That was Nazi fucking Germany. To make such a comparison to like Palestinian children's inside of Gaza, the most densely packed open air prison. I mean, it's like at a certain point, I just wouldn't make World War II references at that point, because it's like, what do you mean? You have ghettoized the West Bank, and Gaza is like functionally not a concentration camp, obviously, because there isn't internal security in there that is like Israeli. It is a ghetto though. It is a ghetto. It is still a ghetto. It is a prison, the open air prison.
And in hindsight, many people have readdressed that kind of carpet bombing.
Oh, I see. Now you're Mr. Clean.
And in hindsight, many people have listen. And in hindsight, many people have readdressed that kind of carpet.
He literally very quickly turns it on the Sky News anchor to say, oh, it's from your perspective, it's okay to decapitate babies. Bro, absolutely zero people have said that. That is such a wild way to defend this. Like, what the fuck are you saying? Most normal human beings are going to look at you and go, you are so crazy for saying that. Now, there's plenty of people who are. There's plenty of people who are, like, fully subscribed to the propaganda. And maybe they just don't recognize it. But that's like, that's wild, man.
Heads of babies. Oh, I see. Now you're Mr. Clean. Shame on you.
Absolutely not. And I'm not. Listen, Mr. Bennett, I am not in the military. I am a journalist asking you questions. Are you going to let me ask you a question, or you continue shouting at me? We've already distinguished between Hamas and the Palestinians. I'm asking you very directly. What
do you want to ask?
Is going to be done to make sure that those innocent people don't get killed, as innocent Jewish people were killed on Saturday?
What did he respond to? I want to know. Yesterday, Gideon Levi explained that, yes, the rhetoric of Israeli fascist politicians is far more extreme than the rhetoric of moderates, but it was the so-called moderates who established the occupation, settlement project, and apartheid. I mean, this part is also correct.
And what about those Palestinian...
That's why you have to make a distinction between the government and the people, and even when we talk about it, like... Oh, Gizmo Max and Toxic SJW, thank you for becoming new moderators. This is certainly a time when there is need for new moderators. Congratulations.
Tifa, senior spokesperson for the Middle East at the World Food Programme, joins us now from Cairo. Thank you very much for being on Al Jazeera. I know you must be extremely busy at this point in time. First of all, can you just bring us up to date with what the situation is right now in terms of food inside Gaza?
Well, the situation is quite severe. The conflict has severely disrupted food production and the distribution network in Gaza and in the West Bank. With the borders closed, Gaza is on the brink of running out of food, water and electricity. Half of the shops that we are monitoring inside Gaza have reported that they might run out of food in 2 days. Others have stocks for less than a week. Out of 5 mills inside Gaza, only one is still operational, which means that the production of bread is being impacted. So also in the West Bank, shops are running out of supplies. The electricity cuts is bringing the threat of spoiling food. The only power plant in Gaza is running out of fuel. So we do have a lot of risks, especially that we are unable, even on the humanitarian side, to replenish our food stocks. Our warehouses are really running low because we're distributing food on daily basis. Today, we have reached up till now 380,000 people, whether it is with ready-to-eat food in the UN-run shelters or by the distribution of vouchers for some of the families outside so they can go to the stores and have whatever is left of the stocks in the sites in these stores.
You said that some places are going to run out of food within 2 days. What happens after that point in time, apart from people not being able to eat? What actually happens in the days after that?
It will be very difficult. These days will be bleak. People will go hungry, and this is why the World Food Programme is calling for humanitarian access to Gaza to allow the delivery of essential food commodities, fuel, and other humanitarian supplies. We need safe and unobstructed passage to all the humanitarian workers and the protection of the premises we work, and also, most importantly, to be able to get food inside Gaza. The pre-positioned food stocks that WFP have is running out. We only had food enough for 44,000 people at the beginning of the crisis, just like 4 or 5 days ago. And we will run out. So we have procured food regionally. We have food that's ready to be deployed. We just need the safe access and the safe passage.
Who are you appealing to? Are you talking to anyone directly? Are you talking to Israel? Are you talking to Egypt, the United Nations, the United States? Who are you speaking to directly about trying to get a humanitarian corridor open so you can get supplies back into Gaza?
I think collectively, as the United Nations, we're all calling and appealing, and I know the Secretary General is doing a lot of efforts to, help open a passage for the humanitarian supplies inside Gaza, but also from the World Food Programme, we are in touch with all the parties to allow us to get to this point. I think there are also the issue of, shelling and safe passage and ensuring that these trucks have the guarantees that would make them able to go inside Gaza, but also, most importantly, to be able to move inside Gaza to get food from these borders to the areas where we need to distribute them, which is basically mostly the shelters.
Yeah, of course. Just finally, is this your worst case scenario? What is playing out?
Those Palestinians.
It was the Nazis targeting London, and you.
And in hindsight, many people have listen. And in hindsight, many people have readdressed that kind of carpet bombing.
Oh, I see. Now you're Mr. Clean. Shame on you.
Absolutely not. And I'm not. Listen, Mr. Bennett, I am not in the military. I am a journalist asking you questions. Are you going to let me ask you a question, or you continue shouting at me? We've already distinguished between Hamas and the Palestinians. I'm asking you very directly. Very directly.
What do you want to ask?
Is going to be done to make sure that those innocent people don't get killed, as innocent Jewish people were killed on Saturday?
Well, we're going to target Hamas, and we're telling Hamas that if you use anyone as your human shield, and you're going to shoot at us using human shields, that it's their responsibility. Listen, mister, if someone is shooting at your children and hiding behind a human shield, will you shoot back or not? I'm asking you a question. Someone's shooting at your children, but hiding behind civilians. What's the answer? What would you do?
Mr. Bennett, I'm not here to answer your questions. I've asked you.
What an insane thing. First of all, you don't shoot. Like, what? Like, that's... Like, does he think this is a movie or something? Like, you're not... There are rules of engagement in circumstances like that. And I'm fucking pretty sure that you're not supposed to shoot. And not only that, but there's an effective means, even militarily, of like fighting back against Hamas. And they don't want to fucking do it because they've tried it before and it was infinitely more costly for the IDF. So that's the real reason why they're engaging in the fucking bombing campaign. Because they don't want to put their soldiers' lives on the line. It's much easier to like just straight up lob missiles from afar and sit back and wait out the anger to subside. But yeah, as far as like shooting someone who is a hostage, like, brother, some of those hostages are your children. You know, there are hundreds of Israeli and other foreign nationals that are currently trapped inside of Gaza as kidnapped as hostages, because the people thought that this would be the Hamas militants thought that this would be a viable way to ensure that Israel wouldn't engage in a bombing campaign, and they were wrong. They said those guys are as good as dead. Which I originally thought was going to cause chaos internally for them, and I think it will. But it doesn't seem to have worked in tempering their reaction. And like, yeah, the carpet bombing concept is also not equivalent to a fucking hostage situation anyway. So none of this makes sense. Especially because there are more effective methods that Israel could utilize, but they don't want to. They don't want to because they don't want IDF soldiers to die.
To your questions, and you have not answered them directly. All right,
So
we'll stop. We'll leave it there.
Also, the guy said electricity to hospitals. Electricity to hospitals have nothing to do with anything. Like, even if you kept bombing, even if you kept carpet bombing Gaza, he's like, so what do you think about cutting electricity off from hospitals? Like, it's very telling that is what his reaction was, mostly because he's just not used to someone. How much of the Hamas human shield thing is legit versus an excuse for casualties among innocents? It's entirely a propaganda talking point. It is completely ridiculous. Like, I do not believe that it's a Hamas hospital. As far as, like, is it operated by Hamas? Yes, because Hamas is the fucking government. But does that mean there's militants there? No. I don't believe when they blow up hospitals to just and try to justify their war crimes, they're just saying it's a Hamas. It's an excuse. And it's an excuse that doesn't work that well. That's why they used to say these are telegenically dead children, or I was reminded on Twitter of an old concept I remember covering many years past. Before the advent of before the mass usage of telephones with phone cameras, there was a concept within the Israeli government amongst like some of the more radical people called Pallywood. Okay, like Hollywood, but Palestine, where they would say Palestinians are staging deaths to film it. Now, of course, with the advent of the camera phone and with the mass usage of the camera phone, you don't really hear about Pallywood as much. They still say things like that, though, when they say stuff like telegenically dead children. Anyway, here's Ron DeSantis. Let's see what he had to say about the issue. This is awesome. I love this. This is my shit.
Ron, what do you think about the annihilation and the decapitation of all the Palestinians in Gaza right now? They basically bulldozed the whole. I worked in the Gaza Strip and worked in Palestinian refugee camps.
But they are not decapitating babies' heads. They are not intentionally doing that.
They're blowing up entire residential buildings. I watched Al Jazeera's.
What do you mean they're not decapitating babies' heads? This is why the argument is so stupid. Oh, I didn't realize, like, the baby's head was intact. This is like nuclear bomb versus coughing baby memes at this point. What the fuck are we doing? No, the baby's head is intact, except the entire body turns into a cloud of mist and dust. It's just pink mist. Like, okay, got it.
And they're not covering that on CNN.
Well, I would be very careful with Al Jazeera. I mean, that's funded by a lot of these Middle East governments. Yeah, I'd be very careful with Al Jazeera.
I love that. Don't have an argument? Racism. Al Jazeera, be careful now. Sounding quite like a terrorist. Bro, I mean, that's so stupid. I'm sorry. Report, Trump told allies and donors in recent days that Netanyahu should be impeached by the Israeli parliament and has also asked multiple longtime advisors he should now publicly call for Netanyahu to step down as prime minister immediately. I'm sorry, dude. There is no better man that is the perpetual room reader than motherfucking Donald Trump. Okay? He is the goated room reader. This is what I was trying to talk before we started with Ethan. I was having this conversation with him. The eminent room reader, bro. Are you joking? First of all, he's such a fake friend, Donald Trump, because Netanyahu and Trump were butt buddies, okay? So that's kind of fucked up, except, of course, he's going to throw him under the bus because he recognizes how shit Netanyahu's approvals are. If Trump ran for prime minister of Israel, he would literally, he would be undefeated permanently, by the way. Trump is an infinitely more popular politician in Israel than Netanyahu is. What? Young Zionists? What do you mean?
They want our people.
They're terrible actors, but with disgusting, manipulative performance while Israel carpet bombing and extermination of entire families in Gaza. I don't think that like this person is manipulative or lying, by the way. I think it's very real. Like when the conversation that Ethan and I were having about paranoia is a very real one that I've talked about already. Okay? It is 100% a very real feeling that you have. It's one that I have heard from my friends, my Jewish friends, especially. It's one that, I mean, I'm sure, what do you call it? I'm sure Jewish chatters in here, Jewish American chatters, Jewish Israeli chatters have probably experienced this or at some point were like well invested in that. Yeah, that is another aspect. That is another aspect of the maintenance of an apartheid state is that, yes, you understandably, due to all of that violence that the state is dishing out on your behalf, whether you have any say or not, doesn't matter. Like, it's still happening. It's still a constant. That is going to have a negative impact on your well-being, on your psyche. It's going to impact you. Just like why, this is exactly the same reason as to why America is so fucking psychotic and violent. Why wouldn't we be? Look at all the violence that we're responsible for globally. You really think that shit doesn't actually play a role in and manipulate us in a certain way to have us see the world in a different light? I do believe that there are cultural and psychological, fucking physiological ramifications for the colonial occupation that we engage in. Okay? 100%. It's the same argument as white people saying they're afraid of black people in America. Exactly. I am not saying that this is a valid concern or consideration. I'm simply stating that this comes as a secondary consequence of trying to routinely maintain and self-justify why the security apparatus must be unflinching and why our enemies must be defeated by any means necessary. If you keep fucking pumping that rhetoric over and over again, why won't people be genuinely alarmed all the time? Anyway, let's get back to Ron.
I think they're faking pictures of families carrying their babies in, totally dead. You know, it's a two-way street. Israel has been killing Palestinians for the whole time Gaza has existed, and they've been contained.
Hamas, Israel put in a warning. We're going to go in this area. Civilians leave. Hamas tells them not to leave. Hamas wants them to be human shields. That's their tactic, technique, and procedure. How many other armed forces give warnings to get out before they go? I think Israel's probably the only one in the world that does that.
I don't condone the killing of any innocent civilians.
It's pretty funny to see little Rhonda try to do this when, like, his campaign literally had straight groypers, dude. What happened to those groiped up shouties? How did they feel? I thought they fucking hated, I mean, I know his ass has anti-Semites in his fucking campaign. They were cutting propaganda. We got to check in with the Nazis for Ron DeSantis on this. I wonder how they feel now. Ron DeSantis finally losing the only group of individuals that wanted to vote for him. The Nazis for Ron DeSantis movement. Damn, Ron. You really fucked up, dog. Many anti-Semites love Israel, put them their type attitude. Yeah. For the record, this is not a conflation with or a serious or a recognition that like Nazis have any serious fucking issues with Israel at all. They're giant pieces of shit. It's just funny to see that someone who has like literal Nazis in his fucking campaign tried to shittily offer vociferous support to Israel.
And I don't condone what Hamas did in the kibbutzes, but Israel is doing the exact same thing with Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a radical right-wing crazy person. And I see hundreds of Palestinian families that are dead, and they have nowhere to go because they can't leave the Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, he said Benjamin Netanyahu is radical.
Well, that's the thing. You bring up a good point, though. You bring up a really good point. Why aren't these Arab countries willing to absorb some of the Palestinian Arabs? They will not do it. Egypt will not do it. Saudi will not.
Yeah, I wonder why Egypt won't have Palestinians. Let's consider for a moment the delicate nature of the current Egyptian government and the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas in general. I wonder, like, what could have happened in Egypt that where there was a different government maybe that wouldn't have had an issue with bringing in Palestinians. Also, Egypt can't even send in fucking supplies to Gaza without Israel being like, we will blow them up. The fuck do you mean? Why won't Egypt take them? First of all, how are you, and he's looking for the camera right now, so stupid. How are you a politician? God, once again, showing his ass, bro. Governors should maybe spend less time going to Japan and more time going to Israel. Okay? How are you a fucking Florida governor trying to become the president and you don't even understand like basic foreign relations amongst foreign nations? You know what I mean? It's like just exercise a little bit of critical thinking and you will come quickly to the conclusion that, it's not necessarily Egypt controlling that border. It's still Israel controlling that border by way of Egypt. Oh, he did go to Israel? Bro, this is why Trump is the better statesman. Trump is, at this point, an elderly statesman. The difference between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump in analyzing the current powder keg of Israeli governance is clear. It could not be more clear. I'm not one to be like, oh, this guy doesn't have experience. This guy does. I've never been one of those guys. I don't think so. I think that like moral clarity is more important. But goddamn, dude, it sure shows Donald Trump having a better assessment of the situation by being like, Netanyahu fucking sucks. He should resign. Versus little Rhonda being like, why don't they go to Egypt? Good one, buddy. Not that it matters because, you know, it's laughable to think that, like, any American politician even gives a singular shred of a fuck about what happens to Palestinians when they're literally tripping over one another to be the first to call for more ethnic cleansing than the last. So.
Will not do it. None of them will do it.
Displaced from their homes in 1948. I was there. I saw where
none of them will do it. None of the Arab countries will be able to accept refugees.
You had my vote, but you don't now.
Wait. Wait. Did he say He was going to vote for Ron DeSantis. That's a pro-Palestine Ron DeSantis voter? What is this? Bro, don't fucking send me shit like this. I don't want to see random OSINT accounts. Don't send me random OSINT accounts. I mean, unless it's verified information. I do not have the means of substantiating and verifying this kind of stuff. I do not have a team to be able to do so. I do not have specialists to be able to do so. And therefore, I would not like to see that kind of thing without a NGO or like a human rights group verifying it. All right.
More than 2 million Palestinians live in Gaza. About half of those are children. Let's bring in Haneen Okal. She's a Palestinian American from Union County, New Jersey. She is currently stuck in Gaza City with her 3 children. They are 8, 2, and a 2-month-old. They cannot get out. Thank you so much for joining us. Has the U.S. Embassy been able to give you any help to get out?
Hi, how are you? Yes. We tried to contact the U.S. Embassy so many times. Unfortunately, they couldn't help us at all. I contacted them through the phone, via email. I texted and I called different numbers, but nobody. I couldn't hear back from any. They said that we're gonna call you back within 24 hours or so on, couple hours, but they couldn't. They couldn't at all.
Bro. There are dog, there are just as many Americans in Gaza there are outside of it. What the fuck? Yeah, of course there's a lot of Americans in Gaza. A lot of people forget that Gaza is not like in spite of it being like a war-torn open-air prison, UN still operates out of it. Life still continues. Americans go in and out of it by way of Egypt usually. Like there are still 2 million people there, and they live on in spite of everything else. They still live on. It's just that their life is just shittier and shittier every fucking day, but yeah. I like that people go, but it's a prison, ... Yes, for the Gazans and the Palestinians, yes, it is. Like, that's not a good counter, brother. What do you mean? This is not even my perspective on it. This is just the global community. Please shatter your bubble for a second. You know you can have visitors in prison, right? I meant it more in terms of how much America absolutely does not seem to care. I mean, we are very bad at protecting dual citizens when they get in trouble with our foreign allies. Let's be real. Jamal Khashoggi is a good example of this. Shireen Abu Akleh is another example of this. It's just, we don't care. As long as they got Palestinian or Saudi on the other side of the citizenship, like, yeah, they're going to get murked. It's fine. Fuck it. Do you think the protest tomorrow in New York City will become violent? I hope not. Yeah. Hasanabi is an example. I hope never to be in the crosshairs of 2 of the governments.
Call us, or we didn't get any information from them. I submitted a form through the website, but that didn't work as well. And I don't know with what happened with areas crossing border and what happening with the Rafah border. I don't know if we're gonna make it, but I am absolutely looking forward to the help of the U.S. Embassy. We are all here feeling abandoned, that and we're feeling that we're left alone. So we're really looking for the U.S. Embassy to help the U.S. citizens who are living in Gaza.
That was just an
Here,
Israeli
to
airstrike
get out from,
that we just heard?
yes.
That was just an Israeli airstrike that we just heard?
A what?
That
I like that he still has the if it bleeds, it leads mentality as a journalist. So he like has to acknowledge it, you know what I mean? It's good. One way to have the Palestinian side heard on this issue. Jake Tapper is not a fan of Muslims. I'm sorry, I will not fucking sit here and act like he is impartial. Ever. I know it in my heart. I know that he is an enemy to all Muslims around the world. I will say it till the day I fucking die, okay? He is majorly Islamophobic, and sometimes it literally fucking jumps out. Anyway, what should jump out, though, is the top of the hour ad break. Would you ever have a Palestinian to speak on leftovers because Ethan and Hila share their sexes living in Israel, but I don't think they and some of the audience fully understand the Palestinian experience? Yes, I have reached out to Mohammed Al-Kurd, and also not just him, but I've also reached out to Mohammed Al-Safin. Shit. And he didn't get back to me in time. I was supposed to have him today.
we just heard a sound like a bomb or a missile. Is that what we just heard?
Yes. That's happening 24 hours. All time, they're bombing all around, from south to north, to the center of Gaza.
Yes, chatter. Mohammed Al-Safin is an Al Jazeera Plus producer, journalist. Yes.
Gaza everywhere. Bombing is everywhere.
Your kids, how are they doing with that?
It's terrible. My kids are very scared and they're afraid of what's going on.
Jake tried to make me apologize one time for calling everyone a CNN cunts. But I called him a cunt instead in retaliation.
I have to explain all the time.
Called him the head cunt.
I have to calm them down and trying to make them feel comfortable, safe, and trying to make them busy with other things so they can't feel afraid or scared. But like they are, like what happened with me, for example, today, I was trying to get out from Gaza. I was going to Rafah border, and while we're going there, we tried multiple ways to get out of Gaza, going to Rafah to the south. We couldn't make it at all. So my son saw all the locations, destroyed his favorite places. He was shocked with what he saw. So we had to see all that, and we had to go through what we say. Okay. So it was like, you're going to death. Yes.
There needs to be a way for you to get out. I mean, you're not Hamas. You're an innocent person.
Okay, I think that he's fair. I'll hand it to him. No, he's not stupid. Chat, he's not. He's not doing that because he's stupid. No. He's not coming to terms with that. He's playing the role of the stupid guy to literally be like he's playing the role of a stupid guy to show that, like, come on, you're not Hamas. Which is he's playing ignorant. He's playing ignorant to tell his audience in the most impartial way possible that this hijabi Muslim woman is not Hamas. Like, he's pulling a classic, like, see, guys in the audience, there are people out there that are not Hamas that are stuck.
And you have 3 kids. You need to be able to get out. You heard earlier.
Wait, what about her husband?
Yes.
There needs to be a way for you to get out. I mean, you're not Hamas. You're an innocent person, and you have 3 kids. You need to be able to get out. You heard earlier the suggestions from the IDF spokesman I spoke with Saturday night. Where are innocent Palestinians?
I think her husband is not in Gaza. Wait, really? Her husband came back to the U.S. to get a passport for the baby. Did I miss that part?
Supposed to go. He said you can go to the south, you can go to the shore. Is that at all realistic? We just heard about your attempt to go to the border crossing in the south, and that.
Bro, okay, that part I feel like is a little silly. Like, no, man, they're completely closed, and there is no way that you can like fucking swim to the shore. You know what I mean? That's not a thing. Like, there's no swimming. The fuck? You can't do that even when Gaza is not under siege. Israeli ships will blow you out of the water.
That didn't work. Is there anywhere for you to go to escape this barrage of missiles?
No, we tried everywhere. They say go to the shore, and then they bomb the shore next day. They say go to the north, and then they bomb the north areas next day. They, like everywhere, they're bombing everywhere. So no place is safe here in Gaza Strip, and it's just terrible and very, very, very hard to explain because they're bombing everywhere.
Well, I hope
it's
the
not
White
just a place or like a place that is close to Hamas. They're bombing places that are not related to Hamas too, like I don't know, everywhere.
Haneen Okal, we have your number. I know that the White House watches this show. The White House can call me, and we will put them in touch with you. You and your kids need to get out safe, and you need to get out safe as soon as is humanly possible. Please stay safe. Stay in touch with us. We're going to do everything we can to help you.
CNN is showing this. I mean, come on, dude. It's fucking 4 days of nonstop bombing. At a certain point, they're gonna fucking reach out to some Americans. It's not like they got Al Jazeera style on the ground reporting happening every fucking day, showing like literally dead babies, and people carrying them in body bags and whatnot. But
damn, this guy's good.